little bit.
Morning.
Oh, much better. So thank you for coming today in this somewhat warm-ish day that we're having. So as always, we're gonna start with the initial reading and prayer. And we didn't select anyone.
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
No, a person to do it.
Ah,
So I will do it. And we are gonna have our lecture done by our friend Rafael, and he's gonna talk about religion and science. So let's do the initial reading by Happy Life. It's from Divago Frango, psychographic by Arjuna. There are many people worry about the harm that others may do to them. They transfer to their neighbors the responsibility of their own failure and constantly discover enemies everywhere, fleeing from an indispensable, clear self-analysis. They wander along path of evil doing and accusations. With such conduct, they would harm and perturb others and are not aware of the evil they have succumbed to and which they are helplessly moved around by. The evil which resides in every individual. This is what makes a man bad, a pernicious element in the social context. So let's now close our eyes. Elevate our thoughts to our Master Jesus and all the beloved spirit friends present here today. Let's ask them to open our minds and our hearts for the lecture of today, that we may be able to absorb as much as possible for our growth and development. Thank you, so be it.
thank you, Raquel. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good to see everyone here today. One more Sunday. Yeah, me again. So I would like to talk to you guys today a little bit about religion and science. But before going into the scientific part, I would like to explain a little about the religious thought and how this inner aspect of our humanity comes to be. So for that, I want to tell 3 stories, and then we can analyze a little bit each one of them. They are from completely different cultures, completely different time schedules, or places in time, but they show us that the lessons that they bring to us are immortal. These lessons will always be current and always be applicable to our lives. And that's exactly because the religious thought or the religion, it comes from inside of us, not outside of us. It's already with us and will always be there. So the first story, it happens in India, and it's about a prince. There's a lot of stories about princes. They're important people, then the others like to write about them. So this prince called Arjuna, he's preparing to go to battle. And on those times, one of the most important war machines were the chariot. So it's a 2-wheel small box that is pulled by horses. And that was supposed, it's terrible, but that was supposed to imprint momentum in spears. So you want to throw a spear, then you accelerate with the horses, and then you throw from the chariot. So then you produce more destruction. And you can use the war horses themselves to trample your enemies. So this was a very common war machine. That's why people go when they at that time when they look at the sky, they would see chariots. And we have the what is the name, the star signs. So that they have things that it's in their daily lives, and then they look at the sky and then they see the same things. And then we still talk about those shapes since that time, and that's related to the lecture of today, religion and science. But never mind, let's go back to Arjuna. So Arjuna was being ready, so he was preparing himself to go to war. And his charioteer was named Krishna. So the guy who would guide the horses was named Krishna, and he would be at the back doing whatever you do in war. Never good. So he was preparing to go to war, and he started having like a lot of epiphanies. Because at that moment, it's the worst moment of war because you are preparing to do something that is completely against human nature, and that generates such a level of emotions that is really hard to cope with it. So you kind of you question the meaning of everything. When you are in the battle, adrenaline takes over, instinct takes over, and you stop thinking. But before is the worst part. So at that moment, he started having epiphanies, and he started telling Krishna, for whatever reason, was just the first person that was there by his side, so he started telling him. And the first thing that he says is that he knew both sides of the armies. So it was a small village, so you could not go to war with people that you don't know. You know everybody. So then he realized, no good can come from this. If I lose, if I win, if I gain another kingdom, I'll never be happy. Because I'll be hurting people that I know. I'll be hurting family members. So how can I ever live with myself? So that is not right. It's not right. That's it. I'll never be happy if the pursuit of that happiness means hurting someone else. And then he continues, even though my family members who are there and they are killing each other, even though they are doing that, it doesn't mean that I should, because I just had this epiphany. So this means that I have responsibility about what I know now. So it doesn't matter if they do. I can't. I can't do it. It's my responsibility, because I just realized what is right and what is wrong. And then he finished by saying, in this situation, it's much better for me if they just kill me. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to defend myself. I think I will feel much better if they destroy my body than if I do anything to them. And this, you see that we start creating parallels with Christianism, with the teachings that we learn from Christianism and Spiritism. Jesus said and did the same thing. If you guys remember when he was taken among the olive trees, when he was betrayed by Judas, and the Roman soldiers, since he was deemed a criminal, so then the Roman soldiers are the ones who have to go there and arrest him. And do you guys remember what Peter did? No? Peter got a hold of a sword. Maybe he wrestled with a Roman soldier, and he got a hold of the sword. And he cut the ear of the Roman soldier. And then Jesus said, no, This is not my teaching. This is not what I taught you. And he picked up the ear and he healed the Roman soldier. He put the ear back. He said, that's whoever hurts with iron will be hurt by iron. And then he delivered himself. So in that situation, we saw that the best way is for me to be an example of my own teachings, of permanent and unconditional love. And that was the same thing that Arjuna was talking to Krishna. I prefer to be the example of what I believe is right or wrong. I'm going to let these people, if they want to, they can kill me, but I'm not going to do what I believe is wrong. So that's the first story. The other story, it happened a little bit to the north, where there was another prince, completely different. It's another moment in time. But this prince, he was a very young prince, and his dad, the king, maintained the prince inside the castle, the palace, all the time. So he was never allowed to go outside. So he didn't know anything about sickness, poverty, death. He lived on a bubble of illusion with all the comfort that money can buy. But he got tired of that. He was a teenager, so rebellious. So then he ran away from the palace. And he walked around in the kingdom, the village, and he saw a very old man, So that man was frail and weak. And he thought, oh, I didn't know we aged. He had never seen an old person before, only his dad, but his dad was not that old. So then he never seen the fragility that comes with old age. And that made him think. And then while he was thinking, he was still walking, and then he saw a sick person. He said, oh my God, what is that? Oh, sickness. So he had also never seen a sick person. And then he started seeing that life can be so fragile. And after that, he saw a dead person lying beside the road. And that was too much for him. He said, this is a completely different reality. I had no idea that life was like that, was so short and so difficult. And then he runs away from the palace. He leaves everything behind, trying to find the truth and the meaning of all that. It is, why so much suffering? And he goes to the forest, and he joins a group that was called the Ascets. Ascets with a C. Was a group that they used to mortify the body. So they would do the bare minimum to maintain the body alive and dedicate all their time to the spirit, like meditating all the time. So then this prince, he would sometimes eat a few grains of rice a day, just barely maintain his body alive, and always meditating, still in the woods where they used to live. But then he gets very, very weak, he can barely move. And then he falls close to a road, and he's about to die of starvation. And a little girl walking to her house finds him and gives him a rice pudding. Where, I don't know why she was keeping rice pudding. Maybe it was from Walmart, it was at Walmart. So, and then he eats that rice pudding, a lot of sugar, and then immediately he feels better. And then he has another epiphany. He says, that's not the way. That's not the way. So I was born very rich, I had all the excesses. Now I took everything away and I almost died. So that's also not the way to do it. So I have to find something in between. The middle path, or in their language, nirvana. And then he spent a long time meditating about finding balance in life. And then he started talking to people, and people start following him and calling him the illuminated or Buddha. And he developed then this middle way or way to liberation in 8 different paths. And one of those, which I think is very interesting, is the path of right intention. That is, you have to develop peaceful renunciation, kindness, and compassion to everybody. And he didn't write anything, but those who were always following him, they did write. So you see now it's a completely different culture, completely different experience of a person who reached the same epiphanies as the other Prince Arjuna. There is a concatenation, there is an intersection. Later on, 2 centuries after that, we reach a moment where the Roman Empire is it controls the main civilized world, so they are everywhere. And they also kind of joined to their empire, kind of, because it was a province that was always a little bit unstable, which was called Galilee or Judea. And in this province, a prophet came along, just another man. And at that time, from since the beginning of civilization to that time, there has always been different gods, but the gods were always connected to war or human passions. So the statues were most often than not statues of warrior gods. They can do you good, but on their terms. So you have to give them something, or you have to be a warrior yourself, or you have to be a person that had accumulated several victories in order to receive the benefits from the gods. And the losers were just people that are not superior to you. You were superior to them because you won, you have the favor of the gods. And then this new guy comes along and he says, that's not how divinity works. Divinity is good for everybody. There are no winners and no losers. There's only brothers and sisters. And the meaning of everything of our life is to learn to love one another, not to win wars. So we have been growing with this for several incarnations and centuries, but for them was something very new. We take that for granted. It was something very new. But it was not, the Roman Empire also created policies that prevented people from just killing each other. So it was not allowed. So they could not just kill this man. They had to have a reason, but they could argue with him. So the people who defended the old ideas, they would, of course, that made that new idea of love made a lot of people very uncomfortable, and they would voice that, and not in a good way. And then there were 2 of his followers. Whenever one of these spirits, they come among us, and they start showing us the religion that is inside of us. So it's like they show principles and truth that we know are truth because it's already inside of us. They are like mirrors. They show ourselves, and when we see that, we feel a pull, or we feel an attraction to that person, and if we can, we start following that person. So that happened with all these 3. So then there were 2 two disciples that were following him that went against the old culture, and we start arguing with them, start arguing with the people who were defending that culture. And then he went back to tell him about it, to tell their leaders, say, hey, I went there and then gave them a piece of my mind. And he said, you just lost your time. You just lost your time. Why do you think you're going to gain with that? You can't change people's minds. You can't change people's opinion. This is just useless. Then they were, oh my God, what do we do then? You keep working. You work. You use your own example. You use your own life. You don't have to waste time and discussing these things that they will never understand right now. But you keep working. You keep doing your work. So these three examples. So the first one is from Hinduism. So it is from the Bhagavad Gita. It's written in Sanskrit, and is one of their sacred texts. They still read today and study. Second one is Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. And the third one is Jesus, as you probably already figured out. So these are it happened in completely different regions of the world, in different moments of time. But they show us that independence of all this religion, they only show us what's inside of us. It comes from the inside. And there's one other example from Jesus that proves that that is true. You guys remember the woman that had committed, sorry, I forgot the word now. Yes, adultery, thank you. The adulterous woman. We all remember that, right? So at that time, the law would say that a woman who commits adultery has to be punished. How? She has to be stoned to death in a public place. So this woman was taken to the public place, and people were really mad at her. Most of the people didn't even know if she was really guilty, but they were mad at her. And they were carrying stones and ready to throw the stones. And then Jesus was passing by, and the translation that gets to us is just, who has no sin, throw the first stone. But I'm sure it was much more than that. But why would that work? Why would that work? Why would people not throw the stone just because a man said something like that? First, Jesus, he knew everything, he knows every single one of us. He knows us. So I can't stress this enough. He's responsible for life in this planet. So he knows every single one of us. The number of people in this planet, incarnate and discarnate, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He knows every single one of us. So when he talks to us, whether we know him or not, it's like a father. It's talking to us. It's full of love and emotion, and full of truth. So he was talking directly to the hearts of those who were there. And when he says, whoever has no sin, throw the first stone. That can only work because every single one of us has a conscience and knows that has a log of everything that we do wrong. We may not remember, but we have a log. It's here. It's in our perispirit. So every single thing that we do is there. Timestamp, details, pictures. little 4K movies that we're going to watch later. We will. So when he said that, people understood that that's what he was referring to. So they could not go against. They immediately they remember their own guilt. So they could not. I can't throw this one, just drop it. And they left. And then he turns to the woman and says, "Where are your judges?" Rhetorical questions. They were not there. And she said, "They left." I said, "Okay, so I'm not going to judge you. I won't judge you. But go and don't do that again." So you see, the lessons that we take from all these situations, they will continue to be true forever. It's immortal. It's immortal and always going to be true. Why? Because that's the essence of divinity. It comes from God. Whatever or whoever God is. However we define God, that's the essence of divinity that we have in us. So whenever we have contact with this religion inside of us, we will be in contact with Him. And that will always be true. But then there's another side. When we lose contact with this divinity inside of us, when the part of us that is not in contact takes over, we can imagine a situation. One of those princes that was, let's just make up something, okay? So we have one of these people, doesn't have to be a prince, one of these people who get in contact with their own religion and start spreading the truth, and people start following them. And these people, this person happens to be from a place where they eat a lot of rice. If you guys know, rice, in order for you to grow rice, you need like a puddle. It has to be underwater, like a few centimeters of water. And then we imagine that in some particular year, there was a flood, and part of a mountain exposed some heavy metals, and the flood contaminated the water of the rice with heavy metals, maybe lead. And then whoever ate those plants got sick and developed sickness. And if it's heavy metal, it goes to your blood and it impacts your mental abilities. And then you kind of go crazy on this particular region of the world a long time ago that people didn't understand. Then we have this leader that says, you should not eat rice. You can eat every other plant, but not the rice. The rice is contaminated. It poisons your soul. That's the way they used to talk. It poisons your soul. A person who has a mental health issues has a poisoned soul, or is I don't know, he was taken by the devil, but it's connected to the rice. If you eat the rice, you become like that. So don't eat the rice. And then like 5 centuries pass, and people are still not eating rice. They're not even in the same situation. They are in another place in the world, and rice is not even grown in the same way. But rice is still poisons your soul. And they still don't eat rice. More than that, whoever is eating rice, it angers them and they get mad. You're eating rice. That is going to poison your soul. You're going to a bad place. So that's wrong. And they hit the rice pot out of their hands. So this is an example where faith in the religion that is in us, it needs a rational It needs our intelligence. The human nature is not just religion. In order to really connect to your religion, you cannot ignore your own intelligence. Guys, we fought for this intelligence. We went through 2.5 billion years of evolution to develop this intelligence. Don't just ignore it. We need it. So those two, they come together. In one of the chapters, let me see, I don't want to look too much. In one of the chapters of Gospel According to Spiritism, Fenelon, an archbishop of the 17th century, he writes to Kardec that the mind and so the heart and the faith has to go hand in hand with science. That's it's not a translation. The word that is there, it's science. Several times in the Gospel According to Spiritism, they tell us that we need science. In another chapter, the spirits tell us, why is it that Jesus waited so long to send the promised consoler? You guys have to learn first. He waited for science to grow so that we'll be mature enough to understand. So we cannot develop too much our own religion without the scientific part. And what does that mean? What does that mean, the scientific part? First, question. You have to question. It has to make sense to you. But it's not, that's the tricky part. How do you make it make sense? Or how do you determine? You have to experiment. You have to study. It's not just sitting on your couch all day and say, yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. If you really want to develop that, you have to study. You have to look for it. Let me give you an example of something that most people take it for granted. General relativity. Does everybody here believes in gravity? You do, right? I just proved it to you. This is gravity. It's a fact. But you know that when you go to the Wonderland, when you go to those roller coasters, and you are there's one that Leviathan that I went once. I will never go back there. I'm never going to do it again. It's terrible. It goes very high, and then it's almost a free fall. At that moment, what is it that we feel? There is no gravity. There's no gravity pull. That's why you feel that thing inside of you, because your organs are missing gravity. There is no gravity there. And if you measure, so let's say you have an object and you put an accelerometer or a sensor, and you put a sensor here, and that it's Bluetooth, so it connects you to your phone. So then your phone, you're reading the force, newtons, okay? And then you hold it, and then you read, okay, 1G, that's gravity, 9.6 meters per second. Then when you drop and you keep looking at your phone, you see that it goes to zero. There is no pull anymore. There is no force. Force, the gravity force, it's a model from the 17th century. Very old. We can still calculate it, but it's not true. It's not true. Why is it that we feel it then? That is because our planet, it curves a fabric that we call space-time. And it makes it's like a parable. So then your existence in space-time is towards the center of the Earth. You are existing in space and time toward that. That's the pull that you feel. You're always going to move towards that point. And because it's curved, you accelerate. Not everybody knows that. But that's the point. There is no, I think that doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter. That's a fact. That's an experienced fact. And people have been doing it for more than 100 years now. And every time they try to disprove it, they find that it's even more right. Until they see, if everything is right, then there has to be a black hole in the middle of our galaxy. And then they take a picture, finally, and they see, it's there. So that is the scientific part. It's a fact. There's no think. There's no, oh, I believe. No, it is there. If it is not, it doesn't make sense to you, it's because you have to change your mind frame. And that's the point that Spiritism brings to us. Life after death, there's no I believe or I don't believe. It's a fact. It's a proven fact. You deal with it. Incarnation, it's a fact. There's no I believe that is not true. It's a fact. But you're not going to be able to experience these facts from your living room. You have to study. You have to really go after it. Even do the test yourselves. How do I test life after death? How do I do that? Well, Kardec already did. He used something really interesting that's part of our humanity, which is mediumship. And then you can say, but there's so much fraud out there. How do I know if that medium is not just want to take my money? He also explained that. Don't use one. He spent 10 years going to several countries making the same question. Same question. And there was never money involved. So that's the first thing. They're charging you money, well, that's a red flag. So there are methods. Reincarnation. Kids, very young kids that remember past lives. And they see a picture, oh, this is my first mommy. That's my first mommy from the other city. And then the parents, what are you talking about? Yeah, that's my first mommy, before I died. And then, okay, most parents say, well, the kid is crazy, or it's just the kid's imagination. But some, they go after it. And some people, they spend their lives studying those cases. What is the difference between them, between all that? What I told you about gravity, maybe some of you are thinking, oh, but that makes no sense, okay? If you want to really understand a little bit more, you have to read something and study something, maybe make some experiments. You can do on YouTube. These days, you can buy the sensors and connect to an app in your phone, and you can do the experiment from the top of your house. You can do it yourself. But you have to do it yourself. You have to work for it. We all have to develop ourselves. And it's the same thing with Spiritism. What is it? Okay, any Spiritist center, you're always going to have at least 3 things. One of them is public lectures, because we learn from Jesus. We have to spread the word. Second, mediumship group. There are always going to be mediumship group, because that's how we communicate with the spiritual planet. And the third one is study groups. Study groups. We are always studying. Always. And if you see the review Spirit, that is still ongoing, actually, you see how many current articles are being published from physicists, from scientists of all areas. So it's not just the people that don't know what they're talking about. They know what they're talking about. So this is the scientific part that we have to bring to our faith. You don't have to be a scientist, but use your own life as your experiment. The teachings that you learn here, do they work? Well, experiment with your own life. What does make you feel better? To respond eye for an eye, or to make an effort to forgive? Both of them are going to feel bad in the beginning, but one is going to make you feel worse. The other one, after some time, is going to make you feel better. But is it more important to make friends or to make war? Love or hate? Most people, they say, not most people, that's unfair. A lot of people say that war is human nature. Is it? No. If human nature was hate, we wouldn't have cities. We wouldn't be able to work together. War is a disease. Hate is a disease, a temporary disease that we are learning to heal. Human nature is love, is friendship, is to be together. And to learn with one another, even if it's difficult. And that's a fact. Test it. Test it on yourself. See if what is better for you. To have a barbecue and invite a lot of people to your house and have a good weekend. Or to fight with your colleagues at work. But in the end of the day, what will make you feel better? So that's the whole purpose. It's that it has to make sense. And then whatever doesn't make sense anymore, we let it go. Kardec himself said, if science disproves anything that we learn in Spiritism, that thing has to be discarded right away. Never ignore science. Never. And here we are, 150 years later, and every new discovery in science is something that, yeah, you know what, I read about that on Genesis. Or, yeah, that is exactly what the Spirit was saying, question number XXX in the Spirit's book. So that's the main point of main goal or my trial here today is to bring this that religion is not separated from science. We are trying to reach the divinity, and we should use all the attributes of our humanity, the divinity inside of us, the religion inside of us, and also the intelligence. And this, it brings a consolation. Because if we analyze other facts that are brought from Spiritism, and all those family members that have passed away, they are still alive. That's a fact. That's a fact. It's not that, oh, I don't know. No, they are. That's a fact. We are immortals. That has been proven. It's over and over and over again. You are also an immortal. The body that you have now is going to die, but it's only your body, not your spirit. You are immortal. That's a fact. Whether you believe it on that or not, it depends on how much you know about the fact. It's the same thing that if I told you guys, if you throw something in the air, when it comes down, there's no force. You say, no, that's ridiculous. There is a force of gravity. If I measure it, there isn't. People can say, I don't believe it. It doesn't matter. Go after the fact. And then you see. The world is not round. Okay, talk to the people who draw the maps. You see that they have to make corrections for the circumference. Or for those who plan air trips, they have to make corrections. Go after the fact. You have a cell phone, you have a GPS. Well, there are 3 satellites that's going around the globe. That's a circumference. It wouldn't work. Your cell phone wouldn't work if the Earth was not round. Go after the facts. But if you just close yourself and say, I don't believe, okay, that's very comfortable. That's very comfortable. But you are creating a prison for yourself. It's a prison. Freedom, it's about going out there and try to find the answers. And when we do, we see that the universe is so much better than we thought. It's so much better. What can be better to know that one day we're going to be perfectly happy? One day we won't have to suffer so much. We will already have reached a point where you don't have to go through that suffering. There is a purpose for all the pain that we feel. And one day it's going to go away. So that's what we learn if we use religion and our intelligence or science. The universe gets better. So much better that makes people uncomfortable because it's too good to be true. Well, go after the facts, which is so rarely done. Go after the facts and do the work yourself. Thank you, guys.
Do you have any questions or comments? No? Lots to think about. No, nothing more. Yeah, it's lots to think about. But thank you so much. All right, so we'll get ready for our classes. Thank you for those who join us online. Hope to see you next week.